Welcome to this introduction to Paradigm. In this tutorial, you'll learn how to use Paradigm to build a simple choice experiment that will present sounds, images, and feedback. Subjects will give their response using the mouse pointer. If you are following along with your own copy of Paradigm, please make sure you've upgraded to version 2, which is freely available at our website, ParadigmExperiments.com. Before we get started, let's take a look at the finished version of the experiment we're going to build. The experiment presents an instruction screen followed by a block of trials, where each trial presents two choice images combined with an audio stimulus. The subject will be able to click on one of the two images with a mouse pointer. Each response is followed by either correct or incorrect feedback. And finally, a thank you message is presented at the end of the experiment. For each trial, Paradigm will record the onset time and onset error of the stimulus, our selected responses, the reaction time, and score it correct or incorrect. Alright, let's get started. I'll start by creating a new experiment by clicking on New Experiment in the Experiments menu. I'll then add the Instructions event by dragging a text event from the Events toolbox into the experiment timeline. Next, I'll type in some instructions. I'll use the property grid on the right to format the text and position the text element on the stimulus designer. You can resize any text element by dragging and dropping the anchor points along the perimeter of each element. The way visual elements look on the stimulus designer is exactly the way they will look when the experiment is run. You can also preview your stimulus layout by using Paradigm's full screen preview, which is located above the property grid. We want the subject to be able to start the experiment by pressing the spacebar. So let's add a keyboard response to this event and select the spacebar as the allowable response. You add responses to an event by dragging a device from the Response Devices toolbox into the event's responses area. Each response device contains a properties dialog that allows you to specify the allowable responses, response time limit, and response action. I'm going to check off spacebar and leave the default settings for the other two. You can access each device's response properties by double-clicking on it. With Paradigm, you can add multiple response devices to a single event. For instance, if you wanted to collect a microphone response in addition to this event's keyboard response, you just drag the microphone device into the response area and set its allowable responses. This event will now detect responses from both the keyboard and microphone simultaneously. We'll finish up this event by changing its name to Instructions in the property grid. Next, we'll add a block of trials by dragging a block event behind the Instructions event. To this block, I'll add a multimedia event, a feedback event, and a pause event. The multimedia event will be presenting the audio stimulus as well as the two response images, so we'll need to add two image elements to its design surface. To do that, click on the image icon above the property grid and place both images next to each other near the center of the design surface. should rename these image elements right and left. Next, we'll add a mouse response to this event to enable subjects to select an image with the mouse pointer. To do that, drag the mouse device into the responses area. Select the left button as an allowable response, and select Enable Mouse Pointer Selection. By enabling mouse pointer selection, we're telling Paradigm that we expect the subject to click on one of the pictures as a response. Finally, rename the multimedia event Choice. Now that we have added the image elements and responses to this event, we're going to want to specify the stimuli it should present for each trial. We do that using the Blocks Trial Table. You can view a Blocks Trial Table by clicking on the Trial Table View tab. The Trial Table is where you specify stimuli file names, correct responses, and trial identifiers. Each row in the table is a trial. We want to present 6 trials in this block, so I'll add 5 more trials to the table. Next, we'll want a column to hold the audio stimuli, and add 2 columns to hold the left and right response images, and finally a column to hold the correct responses. I'll rename the default column Audio Stimuli and add the other 3. Finally, I'll specify that Paradigm should randomize the stimulus presentation in this block. The next step is to connect the stimulus and response properties in the choice event to the columns we've just added. In Paradigm, this is called making a connection. Connections allow you to change the stimulus and response properties of an event on each trial. We are going to want to make a connection between the audio file property, the image property of the left and right image elements, and the correct response property of the mouse. To make a connection, simply drag the property onto the column. When a connection is made, you'll see the dot next to the property turn green. You can check to see that the correct column is being used by clicking on the property. Next, we'll add the audio stimuli and choice images to the experiment. We'll use the Stimulus Finder to locate our stimuli files and add them to the table. Click on the Stimuli Finder tab and locate the stimuli by clicking on the folder icon. The stimuli we're using here can be found in the Visual World sample experiment that comes with Paradigm. To add the files to the table, click on a table cell, and then on the stimulus, and then click the Add Stimulus button. Finally, we'll specify the correct response by using the name of the correct image element, which is either left or right. Here's what your trial table should look like after adding all the stimuli. It's okay if your ordering is different. Next, we'll want to set up the feedback for each trial. Let's return to the design view and click on the feedback event. The feedback event will use the response from the choice event to decide whether to show a correct or incorrect feedback to the subject. To do that, we must specify the choice event as the response event in the feedback's properties. Next, we'll design the correct and incorrect feedback states. Just as we did in the choice event, we'll use the design surface to add image and text elements to each state. We'll also specify a feedback sound for each state. I'll design the correct feedback state, and you can design the incorrect feedback state as an exercise. We'll want to allow some time between stimuli, so we've added a pause event to the end of each trial. We'll specify a pause of 500 milliseconds. And that's about it for this experiment. The only thing left to do is add a thank you event to the end of the experiment to thank the subject for participating. To do that, I'll add a text event to the end of the event timeline. And type in a thank you message. To run your experiment, click the green play button in the toolbar. Paradigm also offers a test mode that will automatically respond to your stimuli for you, which is ideal to use during experiment development. This will save you from having to keep responding to your stimuli each time while you're building your experiment. Thank you for watching. If you need further assistance with your experiment, you should first take a look at the Paradigm help files. If you still can't find the answer, please feel free to send us your question using the Ask Us a Question form in the support page of our website at ParadigmExperiments.com. Thank you for choosing Paradigm, and good luck with your study.